Hello, everyone. It's Tuesday night, and so you know what that means. It's time for book talk, and tonight I'm excited because I get to introduce you to my friend Lynn Blackburn, who writes really wonderful romantic suspense. And I know I say every week that I'm so excited to introduce you to my friends, but I really am because I love Lynn's romantic suspense, and I love the way she writes ensemble casts. And so this is going to be really fun. So Lynn, do you want to take a moment and just introduce yourself to those who are tuning in?
Yeah, absolutely. So, like Cara said, I'm Lynn Blackburn, and I write romantic suspense for Revell. And I am married to my college sweetheart. We live in South Carolina. We have 3 kids, Emma, James, and Drew, who may or may not decide to interrupt at any point tonight. They've been
Isn't that the
banished,
fun of
but
families,
that's
they
the
just
fun.
jump in. And...
You never know, they might show up. And yeah, so I've written, I have one complete series with Revell, the Dive Team Investigation series. And then my latest book is the first book in the Defend and Protect series, and it's Unknown Threat, and it released in March.
That is so awesome. So let's start with your dive series. How did you decide that you wanted to have kind of the hook be this dive team? Because is it something that you're around a lot in South Carolina or have some experience with, or did you just go, that's kind of cool, let's try that?
Mostly I thought it was cool. I was at the Writers Police Academy.
I want to do
have you
that.
ever been? Oh, you've got to do it. It's great. I've been twice, and I just want to go back so badly. The Writers Police Academy at the time was in Greensboro, which is just 3 hours from me, and ironically or not ironically, only an hour or so from my fictional town of Carrington, North Carolina. And part of the options was to go to a class where they were doing a demonstration by the Guilford County dive team. And they actually drove us over to the YMCA, and they were diving in the pool, and they were showing us how they were doing, how they would do a search and what they did when they searched for evidence. And they showed us the body bags and how they did different types of searches, and talked about the fact that their team is, because they don't, and very few law enforcement agencies, the obvious exception being the FBI, but most don't have full-time dive teams unless they are major and on a body of water. Maybe coastal towns might, or maybe some of the Great Lakes, maybe. But as a rule, there's just not enough need for it all the time. And so, at least in Guilford County, and I use them as a model, their dive team is made up of both sworn and non-sworn law enforcement officers, and it's entirely volunteer. And they train on the weekends, and then they get called out. So they all have other jobs in the sheriff's office.
Oh my gosh.
In fact, at the time, the Guilford County office actually had somebody from their lab, somebody from forensics, also some of the beat cops. Like, it was a big combination, and they learn how to dive and they train them on how to do the evidence. But it's that part of it is entirely volunteer. And I remember sitting on these bleachers in this chlorine-filled YMCA, indoor pool setting, and thinking, this would be perfect for a series because I could pull different types of law enforcement officers. It wouldn't have to just be one field, and I could really expand on that, and I thought it would be a blast. And so that was where the idea came from. And I started working on it, and I was very excited to sell it because it would have killed me, I think, to not get to write it, because I was super excited.
You were so hooked at that point. So intrigued.
Exactly. I was invested.
Well, and how fun that it came from actually going and seeing kind of this demonstration of what it's like. And then I love that moment when the what ifs start taking over, and you can see the characters, and you can start going, I see how this is all going to fit together.
I know it's going to work. Yes.
Yeah. And you may not have the full, okay, this is what the entire series is going to be.
Right.
But you've got that hook. You've got that germ of an idea that you just start getting so excited about.
Absolutely. It was great. And I was at the conference with Lynette Easton, and Lynette Easton also writes romantic suspense, and she's mentored me for years. And I remember sitting there going, Lynette, I think this would be a great idea. And she just looked at me and she said, it would, and you need to develop it. And I was like, Yay.
That's awesome. And I have to say, that's what I love about Christian fiction. Because
Yes.
how easy would it have been for Lynette to go, it is, and it's mine. And,
Well,
it could have been a race to the, to the editors to
who
go,
can do
well,
it? Yeah.
I'm going to write this. And, oh, well, Lynette's established, so we'll just go with her. And instead, she's encouraging you and going, yes, and you should do this. And I'm going to encourage you and be your cheerleader.
Yes. I think it's one of the things I think sometimes people don't maybe understand, and I don't think it's like this, and maybe that's not fair, but I feel like in other writing circles it's more competitive and more cutthroat, but I have never experienced anything but a real sense of camaraderie and a sense of, look, there's room for all of us, and we cheer for the people who are already there, and we encourage the writers who are coming along, and we're like, this is a great story and we want to see it. And I'm just, it's humbling and also beautiful to see that piece of God's family played out, where it's all about uplifting and encouraging, and it's not about trying to tear anybody down or keep someone from having some success. And it's beautiful. It really is.
It is. And I'm not going to say that every once in a while I don't go, oh, I would love to have that happen for me too. We're still human.
Absolutely.
But as a whole, I think it's just amazing how we just support and cheerlead for each other. So before we get into what some of that supporting and cheerleading looks like, we've got some fun comments going.
Oh, okay, great.
Have you all read, Lynette, or I'm sorry, not Lynette, Lynn. Okay, Lynn and Lynette, you two.
It happens a lot.
Having names like that? Yeah. I'm sure your mom's got
confused all the time. It happens a lot. Thankfully, she doesn't mind. I don't either. I'm flattered, so it's all good for me.
So a lot of the folks are chiming in and going, like Joy, and it was like all the dive team series, although she still has to read Unknown Threat, which was very, very good. I'm just saying. And then Chrissy's like, oh, I've read all of Lynn's books, including the Love Inspired. And Andy, oh, love the dive team series. Jessica, same here. I keep forgetting that you have the Love Inspired Suspense. Someone said,
yes,
and
there's two of those.
Like, you're new to her, which is great. So I'm so glad that we've got this mix of people who love you.
Absolutely.
And Terry's like, Terry says that you're one of her top favorite authors.
Oh, thanks, Terry. That's awesome.
Isn't that fun? Because
sometimes.
So we were talking a minute ago, for those of you tuning in, that sometimes when your first review is a 1-star review, it doesn't always feel like you're people's top favorite author. So it can be really encouraging to hear that and to just be reminded that people love your books.
It is, and I'm always amazed. Every now and then somebody will send like a Facebook message or a comment, a note in the mail sometimes, and say something, and it never fails. It's always when I'm having one of those days where I'm just banging my head against the wall going, why am I doing this again? And somebody will send some kind of a message that they really appreciated, something that spoke to them in a book or something, like, or they're rereading. I love rereaders, or like, I mean, not only it's huge to me for anybody to take the time to read my books, when people read them again, it's humbling, because there's only so much time. None of us have that much time. And so to have someone choose to come back to that story is always, it's just a gift, and it's always encouraging.
So is there a series that you've reread? So like for me, I'll go back to books now, not as much anymore, because I'm just reading all the time, whether it's for endorsement or for fun or whatever. But like the O'Malley series by D. Henderson.
Yes.
I mean, I must have read some of those books. I'm surprised they still are holding together because of how many times, like Danger in the Shadows. I love that one. The Negotiator. I mean, they're just so good. But is there a series? Okay, so we were both O'Malley family.
Oh, yes. I love the O'Malley.
Another series that you're just like, oh, I love these. I just go back to them.
Well, okay, so, and I'm kind of like you. I reread less now because I get a lot that comes at me. But one of my favorite overall series of all time is the Chronicles of Narnia, which I've reread multiple times because they're just, I love them. And my kids I'm just like, let's reread these.
Yeah.
So, and in fact, the other day I was like, I'm due to reread the entire set. It'll happen. And sometimes I avoid it because I know if I pick up the first one, I will
You're
then
doomed.
read the whole thing. There
Yeah.
is no stopping. It's either don't read them or read all of them. There's no in between. So Chronicles of Narnia are a big one. I grew up rereading Janet Oak. Like
Yeah.
I still have on my bookshelf downstairs all of my Janet Oaks. And so the Love Comes Softly series and When Calls the Heart. I mean, I read them and read them and read them and read them. And I was reading them when they were releasing. Maybe the first two or
Yeah.
three were out. And then so I would get them for Christmas and birthdays. And so
Yes.
that, oh
Yep.
my goodness, I don't even know how many times I've reread those over the years. And then more recently, I sometimes will find myself rereading because I really am I don't like to read out of order. And
Yeah.
I don't like to feel lost in a book if I feel like, even though I know maybe it should stand alone. So sometimes I'll read the first book, and then when the second one comes out, I'll read the first one and the second one.
Yes.
And then when the
Yeah.
third book comes out, I read the first one and the second one and the third one. I kind of have to like prepare ahead of time for them to come out.
Yeah. Yes, you're like, I know it's coming. And so I've got to get my reading time so I can go through
Exactly. I've
all of
got
them.
to get caught up here
Yeah.
so that everything is, up to speed. So yeah, and I was trying to think, the Lynette Easton has a series that is when the smoke clears. I'm gonna get them wrong. There's three.
Oh,
There's
yeah, yeah.
three. But it's
That was
three
one of her
girls from
first
high
series I heard
school.
about.
It was her,
Yeah.
well, and it was her second series, and it was around the time I met her. So maybe that's part of why I'm so attached to it. But I loved that one, and I've reread that one a couple of times, and I've told her it's one of I love all of them, but there's something about that one that I really loved that
Yeah.
particular
So
series.
Andy said that she's so sad to leave the dive team world that she will most definitely be rereading that series soon. So one of yours
Well,
hits on
has
the
she
read list.
read has she read Unknown Threat? Because the dive team people show up. I'm just
They
saying.
do. They've got a cameo. And then Chrissy was like, she agrees. Deadly Reunions, that was a great
Is
series
that
from
it? Okay, yes,
Lynette.
that's it. That's it.
And I can see the covers, but I could not have
Yes.
pulled out the series
I couldn't
name.
have pulled the series
And
name
then
either.
Linda's like, yeah, there are so many good books to get, so she doesn't reread. And that's kind of where I've landed now, because I have these books that I'm hanging on to because my daughters, well, one's 20 and one's 13, and the 13-year-old is discovering all the books. And 5 years ago, my 20-year-old was reading all the books.
Mm-hmm.
But I held on to the House of Winslow series for
Yes.
years, hoping my daughters would get into it, or my sons could have read it too. None of them did. So I finally let them go, and I've regretted it ever since. Do you ever have that where you're like, but
Yes.
you know how much shelf space that took up? I
A
mean,
lot.
There was a lot.
Oh my goodness, so much. Well, and that's like, I have books that I had that I've read, the Tainies,
Oh, I still have those downstairs.
I still have them.
Yeah.
The Holocaust, and then the prior to that, I reread those so much that I pulled them out the other day and realized they're falling apart. And I read them multiple times, and I keep thinking, I can't get rid of them. They do take up space, but I can't turn them loose because maybe I'll have grandchildren someday that will want to read them. I'm like, I can't give them up.
Well, and some of those you can't find anymore. So
no, exactly.
Like the moment I let the House of Winslow go, I was like, okay, that's a box. I can give them to like a nursing home or somewhere where they'll get read, and they're not just taking up shelf space. And then I regretted it. One of the few times I've like regretted it because I'm like, oh. But that's how I fell in love with history, is Vienna Prelude series, Ryan Chronicles, Ryan Covenant, House of Winslow, all of that. I fell in love with history that way. And so it's fun how books can do that. So Terry said Unknown Threat is phenomenal. And I do have to agree, although I laughed, because as we were chatting before we hopped on here, I was going, okay, so which one of your books did I just read for endorsement? Is it the one that's coming out, or is the one? And she's like, it's the one you're holding in your hand, Cara. Oh, yeah, look at that. It says, Lynn Blackburn has created a page-turning novel with all the elements I've come to love in her books. I love it.
There it is.
So now that one of the things that happens in writing And especially when you're someone who is so supportive of other writers, you know, those who are aspiring and things like that, or those who are published, like moi, they'll be like, hey, would you endorse my book? Would you read it for possible endorsement? So how do you do that? Is that something that, because I know you do, because you did endorse Lethal Intent. Thank you
Yes, I
again.
did. It was so good. So good.
And it's still on sale for $1.99 for those of you who haven't read it yet.
Grab it, people.
Yeah. So, but you know, I read across lots of different genres. I just yesterday finished listening to The Lost Apothecary, which is a split time back with 1790 England and today. I read World War II, I read Regency, I read tons of romantic suspense. I mean, I read everything. But my rule for endorsement is if I have endorsed the book, it's because number one, it's an author that I know is going to deliver. And number two, the story does. So that even if it's not the genre that readers might know me from, it kind of has my stamp of this is an author, this is a book that I will read and reread. So how do you decide? Because that's part of supporting other writers. I mean, it really is.
Yes. And I try to say yes. I occasionally, most of the time when a request comes in, it sometimes comes from the author directly and sometimes comes from, you know, their publicist or their editor, that kind of thing. And you get this email, and it is, I will say, as a, from the considering the fact that I was a reader long before I ever thought about writing, and the reader in me gets downright giddy when I get a book that has not been published.
Yes,
because it's
I get to read it first.
It's like I'm peeking behind the curtain, you know, and it's like I love the fact that it's got all these notes, you know, the editing hasn't been finished, and all this stuff. And I'm like, I'm okay with that. I have no problem. Give me. I'm good with it. So from that perspective, it's awesome. I don't have a rule. I've heard that some people do, and that's fine. I definitely don't have a rule about like it has to be romantic suspense for me to endorse it, because I am the same way. I read widely and across genres, and I think a story is a story, and if it's good, then I'm happy to share with it and share about it. And I know that I have readers who only read romantic suspense and they're really not interested in other genres, but I also know I have a ton of readers who do read well outside of their one particular genre. So I love to just, you know, spread the love around. And if I can possibly do it, and a lot of times I'll tell people, like, thank you for thinking of me, and I will do my best, but I never commit to actually endorsing it until I've read the whole thing. That's one of my rules. I'm like, I will not endorse a book that I haven't read from cover to cover. And then unfortunately, sometimes just life and deadlines happen, and I'll get a request and I'll be like, there is absolutely no way I can do this. There's just no way.
And like, I think when you were reading Lethal Intent, you were literally squeezing it in between turning a book in and edit.
I think I did.
And you know, and that's the life, and that's just reality. But I'm the same way. I'm like, I will not endorse it if I haven't read it all the way through. Now, sometimes it means it's a speed read, you know, because
that's true.
I want to try, but because sometimes a book falls apart in the last 50 pages, and the beginning is like
disappointed, like
yeah, exactly. You're like, what happened to the editor? Where did the editor go? Or, you know, something just happened and they ran out of time or whatever. And so it's important. And I've heard horror stories where someone was like, oh, I know this person, and they read some, and then it came back to haunt them later. And I'm just like, I don't want that to happen.
Scary. Yeah. No.
Yeah.
And I try to tell people, I usually try to give myself a little, I have and part of it's just temperament and personality and how I'm wired. And I know not everyone is wired the same way, but it's not that I don't have strong opinions or can't be critical, but I very much prefer to be a cheerleader. Yes. So as a rule, if I say something publicly about a book, I'm only going to be saying good things. And that's not because I'm opposed to people giving a bad review, because like we were talking about earlier, negative reviews do lend a certain amount of authenticity that not everyone who read it was your best friend, you know, kind of thing. But for me personally, if I talk about a book publicly, I have to have enjoyed it. And if I didn't enjoy it, and it doesn't, just because I'm not talking about a book doesn't mean I didn't enjoy it, but I'm never going to badmouth a book publicly because I don't feel like that's my role in this world. I want to be a cheerleader for other authors and an encourager. And there are plenty
Yeah.
of other people who have that role. They are more critical, and I don't mean critical in a bad way. They're more
Yeah.
critical of the of story and that kind of thing. And that's how either their blogs or their Instagram or whatever they do, how they post, that's what they do. And that's fine. For me, if I can't say good things about it, I just don't say anything.
Yeah.
But if I do love
Or
it, I'll lose my mind over it too. So there's
yeah,
that. Pepper,
exactly.
Asham, oh my goodness, Hope Between the Pages. I gushed over Instagram and Facebook and everywhere for like 4 days because it sucked me in and I couldn't stop reading it. It was so good. And somebody was laughing. I was like, I don't care. It was just that good. I couldn't
Yeah.
stop. And I love it when I have the time and the opportunity to be a big fan of somebody else's books because it's just fun. I was a reader. I am a reader. So I mean, I
Yeah,
want to share books
exactly.
that I
And
love.
I think the best authors are readers. That we fell in love with story
Yes.
and then we started
Words.
writing them.
Yes,
And so,
absolutely.
I mean, I think that's also why I love that. Okay, I want to be a cheerleader. And I'm the same way. If you see something on Goodreads and it doesn't have a review, it's either because I just forgot or I'm choosing not to see something because it may not have been for me. Or
Right.
every once in a while, there'll be a book I love, but maybe it's not a CBA book where most of my readers are in
Yes.
Christian fiction. And
Yeah.
so then I'll have to put like a caveat. I loved it. However, be aware
Right.
this
Some
may be
language,
it.
yes, those times.
And
Yes.
so it may not be for you, but
Right.
like I just finished The Rose Code and oh my gosh,
Is it good?
amazing. Absolutely amazing World War II story. And I mean, my other genre, I write romantic suspense and
Right.
I write World War II. And so, and it's the Enigma Machine. One of my books is set around breaking the Enigma codes. I mean, it just hit all the things. It's England. It was so good. But there's a little language. There's a little other stuff happening that for the
Right.
typical Christian reader, you may not like. And so,
Right.
putting that, I have to then
A
be
little
aware
note,
of, okay,
yes.
who are my readers and what's going to need to be go there. So I asked if people read reviews because, we started talking about reviews and
Right.
1-star reviews. And you were telling me that Bethany Turner
Yes.
does memes with her 1-star reviews.
Her
I'm going to have to
one-star
try that.
It's
I'm just
amazing.
going to try that. But Joy says they don't really matter to her. I'll read them after, though, if it didn't appeal to me, to see if others had the same issue. Because sometimes it's just
Yeah,
not
that's fair.
hidden.
Yeah, sure.
Linda's like, yeah, I read reviews. Laura Days says only if it's a new author, specifically to make sure it's a clean read. Yeah, because that's it's important to know what you're getting into. Nina, I had a book I read that I agreed to review. It ended up just letting the author know my thoughts because you didn't want to write a public review. And sometimes that's, sometimes I've had to go, you really don't want me to write one. And so I think there's wisdom in that.
Yeah.
Joy said she just finished the Rose Code this morning and then going, I didn't see that coming. Yeah, it was so well done. So many great twists.
See, I'm going to have to add that to my TBR.
Oh, you should. And the audiobook is fantastic. That's actually how I read that one.
Okay. Yes.
And so because with all the British accents, that was fun.
Oh, that's even better. Yes. Yes.
Yeah. We can't travel right now. So I'm going to travel through books and through audiobooks so I can get the flavor. But yeah, there were, even as a writer, and I don't know about you, when I'm reading now, it's really easy to anticipate a lot of twists because I've read a lot and I've written a lot. And so when I can be surprised, I'm like, yes, this is so good.
Yes, it does. When I first started writing, I had a stretch of several years where it was really hard to read because I couldn't turn my editor off. I couldn't enjoy the story. My brain kept trying to break it down and figure out what was happening and study it. And it was frustrating because my reader self was like, why have I don't want to lose that part of me, and I don't want to lose the ability to fall into a story and get lost. And it took a few years to kind of get back into a place where I could enjoy stories again. And I'm also now a lot more willing to give stories time because I found that the first that falling in love on page one thing doesn't happen to me as often. And sometimes I have to give a book 3 or 4 chapters not because it's not well done. It just takes a little longer for the brain to turn off and for me to just fall into it. And then I can charge ahead and just go with it. But it does take a little time.
It is interesting because like even The Last Apothecary, which I actually enjoyed, I think it just kept popping up. And then it was on Hoopla or Libby or something. So I could, get the audiobook. And I was like, okay, I'll just listen to it. But I ended up, for some reason, having to walk away from it. And then I was like, mudlarkers. What book was I reading that had mudlarkers in them? And it was this really cool hook. And then I saw a book on Vine that they want to send me on mudlarkers. And I was like, what was that book? And it's like my brain's just kind of cluttered with all the books I've read.
Sure.
And so it's just interesting. Andy says she mostly chooses books based on recommendations. Or she doesn't, but she scans them on Goodreads. But if I already love the author, reviews don't matter. And then Linda's like, she tends to read her favorite authors. They go to the top of the pile.
Right,
and so things nights like this are good for meeting new authors, which is awesome because that's why I love to do these.
That's great.
Okay, so we need to talk about Unknown Threat.
Unknown Threat. Okay.
Because this one, yes, look, we have our matching books.
We have matching books.
Yeah. Yay. Because this one is the first in a new series.
Yes.
And it's Secret Service. So it's kind of a fun twist on things. And I'm pretty sure I've already read the next one, even though it's not out yet. That's the challenge with getting all these books early.
I don't know. My editor has it. So you may not, that one, mine is coming out once a year. So maybe not.
Okay, so this one just came out. So for those of you who are looking for a summer read and you love romantic suspense, you really need to go try it. Tell us about this one. How did you, because we know how you got the hook for the dive teams. So what was the hook that made you go, I want to do Secret Service and FBI?
Well, I mean, there's just something about the Secret Service. And let's face it, it's very cool. It
is very cool. And people don't understand it.
No, I mean, it's a whole thing. I probably wouldn't have touched it. But I have a friend who, until just recently, was a Secret Service agent and was willing to talk to me. Obviously, I don't ever give their name or information. And obviously they aren't sharing anything inappropriate, but just giving me that big picture. And when I was brainstorming the series, we spent several hours on the phone talking about the different things that the Secret Service does. A lot of people think the Secret Service is the suits and the security around the president, and that is certainly part of it, but there is a lot more that they do. And we talked about the big ideas for the 3 books in the series and what would make sense for those stories, and how that would fit within an office. And because my dive team is set in a fictional town in North Carolina, kind of centrally located in North Carolina, I wanted to use the Raleigh office of the Secret Service so that my dive team characters could maybe find their way to Raleigh occasionally. And it was actually fun. They do show up in Unknown Threat. A couple of them do, but Malicious Intent, which is the next book that I'm currently in revisions with right now, I managed to get all 6 of them in. And I even asked my editor, so all 3 heroes and heroines, all 3 couples show up in Malicious Intent. And I even asked my editor, I was like, so I did this and I need you to tell me if it was too much. Like, I got them in there, but maybe it's too much. And she was like, no, I loved it. She's like, it's great. So I'm excited.
And your readers are going to love it.
Yes,
I think about all the people who were like, we love Dive Team. We're so sad that they're gone. And you're like, but they're not.
But they're not really good. So it's fun. And I wrote a novella to tie the 2 together that is free for my newsletter subscribers. So if you subscribe to my newsletter, you get access to this novella. And it's Dive Team Investigations 3.5, Defend and Protect 0.5. It falls in that in-between space.
Oh, that's awesome.
Connects them. And
that's awesome.
I had a blast writing that. And the hero of that novella is going to join my Secret Service agents in book 3. So it's really fun, to get them all connected. I love that whole ensemble cast idea where everybody is in all of the books. Each book focuses on a couple, but they're all in there. And I love
Yeah.
writing it that way. And I don't think I realized, because the Dive Team series was my first 3-book series. But when I got to the end and was planning the next series, I realized that that was what I had done and that I wanted to do it again. So it's one of my favorite things about all of tying them all together and I don't have to say bye to these characters quite so
Yeah.
much because I get to keep bringing them back in.
Well, and readers like that. You know, we fall in love with characters and then
Yes.
the book ends and we're like, but what happened? And so
Yes.
I did some of that with the Hidden Justice series where, you know, by
Yes.
the time you get to Lethal Intent, you can kind of see where Hayden's going to be okay and this is going to happen.
Yes.
And it's kind of Easter eggs. You know, if you do it right, someone can start on book, you know, on direct threat and
Yes,
they're not going to feel
absolutely.
like they missed out, or they can
Exactly.
read book 2 and then go back and fill it in.
Yes.
But there's nothing quite like you read a new book and you're like, wait a minute, I need to go back and reread all of the books because I
All
want
of
to see
them.
how all
Yes.
these characters come together. And that's so fun as a reader. And then as a writer, I do what you do. And I'm like sitting there and analyzing and going, okay, how did they do this? Why do I care so much? Why do I vaguely remember this character? And it's just
Yes.
fun.
Oh, it is. And it's fun. Like you said, the goal is that anybody can pick Unknown Thread up and not even know I have the other series and read it and be completely satisfied. But also maybe they go, wait a minute, who are these guys in Carrington? And wait,
Yeah.
there's more about them, and I'd like to know more about Gabe Chavez, because everybody wants to know more about Gabe Chavez. I mean, like, my readers have a hashtag Team Gabe. Like, they really want more about Gabe. So I'm like, listen, I had to put Gabe in there. So it's a fun way to hopefully encourage readers to read all of them and stay connected with all of them.
Yeah. Well, it's fun because Joy dropped a hashtag way back at the beginning, Team Sabrina.
Oh yes. And Sabrina, ironically enough, is in this one, and she's in Malicious Intent. She shows up really early. And it's funny because when I wrote Sabrina, I watched a lot of the show Bones,
Okay.
because that Temperance Brennan, that character, she's brilliant, but she's kind of awkward and socially inept. And I channeled a lot of that for Sabrina. And so I thought Sabrina might be the nerdiest character that I've written. And I wasn't sure if people would love her, and readers love her. And it makes me so happy because I'm a nerd
That's
and a geek
fun.
too. So I love that people love her so much.
That is so very fun. And it's hard to believe, but we're
I know.
at like 2 minutes. I told you this goes
It
so
would go so fast.
fast. So thank you so much for joining
Thanks for
in
having
tonight.
me.
This has been fun. I hope
It was
everybody's
great.
enjoyed meeting Lynn. And if you haven't, you can definitely start with this one. Although if you haven't read the Dive Team, there's definitely some Dive Team vibes going. But Unknown Threat is fantastic. Highly, highly recommend it. And not just because I endorsed it, but as a reader, I love it. And so thank you so much for joining in, Lynn. This has been great.
This is wonderful. Thank you so much, Cara.
All right.